excited to be here today, to be speaking with all of you, and I have decided, because I do talk, I do speak, and I do strategize quite a bit, I decided to dare to free flow a bit, and I hope that you'll go with me on that. And one of the reasons that I've done that is it's actually quite antithetical to the process of being a stunt player. When you're a stunt player, all those daring things that you do, of course, they are daring by nature. That's why you're hired. You're hired because you're expendable. And so what you're doing is dangerous on some level and could endanger the stars or the lead actors, the actors that you're doubling, or generic people if you're doing generic stunts, like the person diving out of the way in the restaurant when the car crashes through that plate glass window. In those situations, the stunt people are strategizing very, very carefully. It's very mathematical, a lot of physics involved, and a lot of imagination, because most of it can't be fully rehearsed. There will always be some unknown, unquantifiable danger. So the trick is to prepare, to do a very strong preparation, to scan the entire event for all the possible things that could go haywire, and come up with a strategy to interrupt those before they happen, or to cope with them when they do happen. And today, what I've done for our talk today is I've dared to create kind of a mind map that is a little bit reminiscent of the mind map that one of my great inspirations provided. And I'm actually inviting you, if you have some paper, something to draw with, that you might want to pull out a sheet of paper if you'd like. And if you'd like to do that, maybe that you put at the center, as I did, here in the world of acting, and I believe in the world of life, our center goal might be inspiration, inspired action. Well, this chart was actually designed for actors, but I changed the middle to action because we believe in living life as a work of art and daring to be an artist of the living process. So starting with this center point, I put dare on my piece of paper. And you might do that. You don't have to, but if you'd like to. I started with dare in that center point because I thought about all these different things, aspects of dare. So my dear friend Dan, he's like my brother from another mother, he says, don't forget about the double dog dare. I'm like, yeah, the double dog dare, okay. I mean, what's the difference between a dare and a double dog dare? Well, a double dog dare is one you cannot say no to. I double dog dare you. Well, you would lose all your machismo if you did not accept a double dog dare. They're usually pretty bold. And it's interesting because sometimes I get asked, what is the most scary thing that you ever did? It wasn't necessarily jumping off a 3-story building or going through a plate glass window or getting hit by cars. Those were all okay, crashing motorcycles on cue, lots of fun. But the really scariest thing that I did was on a film with Tom Berenger, Daphne Zuniga, doubling her. In New York, Last Rites was the film. I had to leap across a 12-foot alley, 6-floor rooftops. So 12 feet isn't really big enough for an airbag. So they've got one of those little fireman's nets, kind of like, looks like about cartoon size from 6 stories up. And I've got to leap 12 feet And if I miss, my imagination is just seeing me bounce off those bricks, ricocheting back and forth, and this little teen down there going, oh, she's going to be here. No, she's going to be here. Look what's splat. Yeah, that was scary. And it took a lot of bravery for me to dare to do that. And how did I prepare? First step to a dare is to prepare. If you're going to double dog dare, you want to make sure you're really well prepared. A strong preparation will make your action effortless. Again, to look, if there's a dare being asked of me, I look to see where is the scare. In what is scaring me that makes me feel that what is being asked of me is needing courage in order to do it. And I look in the world and I see essentially principles at play. So how can I address something that's scary? First, to find out what are things that scare me. And they come from 3 directions. So you might jot this down in maybe 3 little branches. One is the scare comes from inside. It comes from inside of us. And we have to dare to honor that, to recognize that we are scared, that we are invited to move forward by the notion of a dare, whether that dare is prompted from inside or from outside. What inside of us is blocking us, scaring us? And can we look at that and find a way to work with it? And then we have the scare that comes from between yourself, me, between me and you, between you and your partners, between you and your children, between you and your family, your environment that you work in, that you play in, that you live in. The scare that comes between you, what scares you about all that? Gosh, today, there's a lot that scares us, isn't it? I mean, we're in this environment where it's a dare just to walk out of the house, right? It's a dare to be able to call up somebody and ask how they are. It's a dare to really check in with your own truth and know it and be willing to live it. So we have these dares between us. And then we have the third level of scare, which comes from the exterior. I mean, that invisible, unseen, unknowable, or largely external source of conflict. And if you're a writer, you recognize that these are all part of integral storytelling. If you're a creator, you know that these sources of conflict that come up inside, between, and from the outside are all sort of colliding in the great climaxes of our stories. It's, a classic 007 film will have that inner conflict, and then the conflict between, do I kill the bad person or do I save the love? And then that final event where the whole world is collapsing, the island is imploding or whatever it is, and the decision to kill the bad person and save the love all collide at one point. It's great for storytelling. How do we tell our stories in our life? And why do we tell our stories in our life? We tell our stories through our creativity and how honest we dare to be with our creativity. Just so much depends on all the scares on those levels. So when I am locked up with grief, for example, or fear, or depression, I am looking at a way to find a path through it. Do I dare just curl up and say no and don't go out into the world, don't come out of my own self and wither? Or do I find some kind of spark, some kind of light, some kind of sun-like fire, passion? And where does that come from? And can I find that fire and that passion? Do I dare recognize within myself what is inside of me? So when I'm looking to leap that 12-foot chasm and my imagination is in a panic state and my breath is hyperventilating, well, that's not good. If you're actually going to need a lot of air to lift off and make that jump. So prepare. I go to the gym. I work with a team. I do your standard sort of broad jumping, yes, running, leaping, and making sure that I can make 13 and a half feet before I try 12, so that my preparation is always harder than my actual active event there. So I made it, obviously. I didn't ricochet off those bricks. Thank goodness. But that was really, really scary. But not as scary as some of the inner dares that I've had to, or chosen to, uptake in my life. I was a supreme klutz as a child. And in fact, there was a point when I was just 10 years old when I was so nervous, I thought no one knew my name was Lisa. And I went to my dad. I have 4 brothers and sisters. I went to my dad. I dared to finally go to my dad, cry, "Daddy, I don't think anyone knows my name is Lisa. They just call me Klutz." And my dad held a family meeting and informed my brothers and sisters that it was no longer acceptable to call me a klutz. Just because I am a dyslexic, ambidextrous klutz doesn't mean that I need to be called that. I don't need to be bullied about it. But I took things one step further. That was massively helpful. I got help from between. I had the courage. I dared to go ask for help. I asked. Asking is a central premise for opening up our imagination, opening up pathways to ask. I asked for help. Wow, what a crazy thing to do. Wildly independent, I turned my klutziness and my tendency to crash and fall down into a career as a clown, as a comedian, and as a stunt woman, and as a physical theater artist. And ultimately, I found that what was living inside of me that really lit me up all came that same year when I was about 10. It's a fascinating thing. I remember I needed to perform, so I wrote, directed, and cast myself in my first play. I remember in 5th grade, I remember the whole school, all the faculty were meeting, and they needed someone to teach 1st grade. They came into the 5th grade class and said, "Can we have someone to teach?" My hand went straight up. I was already in brownies, and I was already teaching the younger ones, so I wanted to teach. So I was already, I was an athlete already in basketball and softball and swimming. I was already a crazy tomboy teacher, performer. Those things were inside of me. Committing to a life as an entertainer is a big dare. Everyone tells you, don't dare do that. You will have no security, no safety. But what you have when you align with what is that powerful light within you is love. And that love is an endless source of fuel. If you dare to love and express what you love and share what you love and ask for help with what you love, chances are that you will have the opportunity to get some support with that. I wrote a whole bunch of notes here, and one of the, I love to come up with what I think they're called anacronyms, right? DARE. I had lots of things for DARE, lots and lots and lots of things for DARE, but the one I liked most was Divine Acts of Resplendent Expression. Divine Acts of Resplendent Expression. When I look at Mr. Chekhov's chart for inspired action, this is a map of the way energies move when we're in peak performance. And the bottom, it just shows us what some of the most basic energy patterns are, the nature of closing in and the nature of opening up, right? And you hear in the word dare, you have a closing in right on the D, this duh that pushes down. And that's kind of, I double dog dare that downward will force process. And then you have this this which is this beautiful opening up. And this which goes there. And then you have this force in the R, which goes like this. And these kinds of energies, these archetypal gestural patterns that live in the word itself, they relate to this inner force, this will force that put your foot down there. Open yourself up and ask there. And be able to close yourself off and say, no, I'm not going there. And having the ability and the thought process and the force and passion to move forward with that. Anytime our imagination gets stuck, all we need to do is ask a question. What is it? What is it? What is the problem? What could happen as I'm going to leap that tall building? As I step, there could be a little bit of gravel, which could lose me traction. So what do I need to do to prepare? I need to make sure that that is all clear, right? But my daring acts really need some reflection in the end. We need to reflect upon what we've done. And in that reflection, it's not like repetition itself is a growing power, but it can grow an old habit, a bad habit, it can grow reluctance as well. But repetition with reflection allows us to consider everything that we've done and prepare us for what's to come. It allows us to deepen the appreciation that we can have for the courage necessary for us to move forward, to meet what's inside, what's coming from between us, and what's coming from without. One of the things that I knew that was coming in from inside of me was that my stunt career was not my true destiny. I knew that, but I was so successful that my ego was too terrified to let go of the income, the pride of being, a top stunt woman. Oh my gosh, I do all these crazy things there. But I didn't dare let it go to just focus on what I needed to do. And then I quit, and then I went and did one more job, a simple little job, which caused me a 46% permanent loss of use of my back. It gives me a lifetime handicap hang tag. I'm not a good trade for a life of chronic pain, a life of crippling arthritis, right? But I dare to move forward because I could fall in love. I could reflect back on why I didn't dare let go of that career until I was forced into being crippled, right? Only then could my true creativity begin. When I became more in alignment, I dared to be more in alignment. As 18 years in Los Angeles, and I got a message, it's time to leave. And I dared to walk away from a successful acting career, from running my Chekhov studio there. I dared to walk away with my husband and just move to Fort Worth for no reason except it was near a major centrally located airport that was warm enough to play golf and ride my motorcycle most of the year. And there, I heard another inner voice that I dared to listen to, which was to pay attention to my husband. And I let all my ideas and things go, and I spent all my time with him because the message was I could be his nurse or I could be his playmate. So I dared to play. I played fully, and I got another 1.5 years with him from then. And sometimes the dare that you meet on the inside is more important than any kind of double dog dare that anyone else can provide for you. To dare to listen, dare to ask, dare to imagine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. There was so much to be absorbed in that. I was jotting down notes rapidly, trying to read my chicken scratch now. I'm like, I need to replay this. So if any questions come in, they all are going to prompt them to me, but a couple that stood out is, I think you hit such a relative point at the moment of it's a dare to walk out of the house right now. And I think that's, physically, emotionally, it's that inner dare, and it's this kind of physical dare. It's a duality of both of those. I mean, how have maybe you personally really challenged yourself in the last almost 2 years now?
Well, I just finished doing a play here in this theater. I had the honor of playing the Katharine Hepburn role, Violet Venable, in Suddenly Last Summer by Tennessee Williams in the Fort Worth Fringe Festival. And it was a really big dare for me, really big, because I suffered brain damage several years ago. And I was touring with a solo show, my second solo show, which I'd also performed here. And that show was 90 minutes of my own memorized material. But I lost language capabilities, and I lost memory capabilities and balance capabilities with the brain damage. And so I had to stop that show. So this was the first time that I dared to step back on the stage. And when the director asked me to do the part, I said, I have this situation. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'll try to memorize a scene at least, I'll tell you at least a week before you open casting, if you're going to have to recast me. But I did it, and the production was an honor to do. So.
How did that feel, just getting back up there?
I'm turning 68 next month. And as I mentioned, from a time child, my first time on stage was 5 years old. To be living without knowing whether or not I can be who I've been. Every time I get an audition for a film or something like that and have to memorize material, and I'm like, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this. So my self-doubt, am I ever going to be able to be an actor again? Am I ever going to be able to perform? Over 65 years or 60 years of performing, will I ever be able to do that again? has been very scary, very depressing. And so to uptake that dare and do that, I feel, I'm an actor. I'm back. So I'm very excited. I feel much lighter because of it.
When you feel at peace with what you're doing, that lightness just really takes hold. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. We have a question from Christina. Did you ever use music or rituals to prepare?
Yes. Strong preparation, as I said, makes that action effortless. And the process of, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. It wants to leap over that cliff. Okay, here we go.
I wish I had some water off you. Sorry.
I'm going to take a sip here.
Yes,
That's
please
going to
do.
help.
Please do. Tea person.
Yes, music and rituals. Ritual, the origins of theater are in ritual. Recently there was information released about finding in Tibet 140,000 year old handprints that they believe were made by two children as an artistic expression. 140,000 years ago. Now, we've been working off this 40,000 years of, cave stuff in South France, Spain, etc. But this is 100,000 years prior to that. And the scientists are absolutely convinced that these are works of art. And to know that art impulse is inside of you, and the nature of ritual calls upon this aspect of our connection to the divine. And whether or not we believe in it, one of Mr. Chekhov's ideas is that all the characters exist in this sphere. It's kind of like we have our own little iCloud in our I imagination, right? And our higher self contains access to this, whether you want to align that with Carl Jung's archetypes or however you want to, but it's like Hamlet and Ophelia live up there. And Violet Venable, who I just played, who Katharine Hepburn played, who Maggie Smith played on stage, well, Violet lives there. And Tennessee Williams kind of downloaded her, we each download her. So there's a ritual of clearing the way, of removing the debris that prevents us. In old times, they were the muses. And we all know the great artists talk about being haunted by the image. The song was there, the music was there, it appeared, it was in the stone, it just needed to be freed. It goes back eons and eons, thousands and thousands of years of people recording that they are being inspired from forces beyond their everyday self. So to dare to do a ritual that prepares you to that openness is absolutely essential. And music is great to calm you down, open you up, or bring you into the energy vibe that you want to be in for your creative act. And for me, on stunt things, on super dangerous things, I never use music. But my ritual was to do that scanning for danger process, and when everybody thinks everything has been triple checked, to check 2 more times. So that ritual and seeing, really visualizing the entire event going absolutely perfectly. So that visualization process, and it's not, for me, I'm not actually a visual person, I'm a kinesthetic person. So when I say visualize, I actually mean energetically, I feel my body going through it. And so rituals are, to me, a central key opening process for opening your creativity, opening yourself to be a conduit for it. And that reflection process that I was speaking about is also a ritual to ask yourself, what did I love about what just happened? What would I do differently if I get take 2? And what was my favorite moment? So it's call it an Oreo cookie. So you got that base cookie of overall affirming what I've just done. Double stuffing it, because who doesn't love a double stuffed Oreo, right? It's like, what would I add to make it even juicier if I do it again? And then that top favorite moment, which sparkles in your imagination and leaves the artist with an incentive to improve, to grow, to do more, and also leaves them with a stronger sense of self-esteem and value and appreciation.
I think that's such a key point, is that reflection, I think, is the level that is so missed in our fast-paced world right now. You have this experience, and good or bad, and we don't take the time to feel it, to like reflect on that, to then better make decisions moving forward and to change that, that path, and just to be open to a different outcome. That's great. We have another question from Joel. As an author, did writing books feel like a dare?
Wow, yes. I wanted to write for so long, and one of the things that happened was when I decided with my husband we were leaving LA. We looked online for houses in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and one of the central things was because the house we were going to get needed to have lots of different places where I could write. Because of my back injury, I couldn't sit for very long in any one place. So I had to be able to write standing up, write lying down, write sitting in different positions and levels. So I needed something that was going to be environmentally inspiring in multiple locations. And then I got here and I didn't write. And 10 years went by, my husband passed, and I still didn't write, and I was really down on myself. And then I dared to take this course where I wrote both Falling for the Stars and Murder of Talent essentially in 4 days.
Well, there you go.
And because the guy who was guiding me was Tom Bird, and I recommend it definitely. He believed the same thing that Michael Chekhov is like, the book is its own being, and it exists, and it wants to come through you, and it's been nagging you and nagging you and nagging you. And so through this concentration ritual and just downloading, I wrote about 1 3/4 in those 4 days. And then, of course, I stopped and pulled back and sort of revised and things like that. But it was such a relief. And it was a massive dare to do it, and dare to put it out there. And
The words we see.
yeah, you don't know. And my Murder of Talent book is really, you read that, it's kind of like, oh, so why don't you tell us what you really think here? Because it is a diatribe about how creativity is murdered from all these different directions, from outside, from within, from between. People who think they have your best interests at heart, just killing your hopes. And you adopting that, me adopting that in my mind and saying, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, all those things.
Making you doubt.
Filling us with the doubt, terrible doubt in our mind, terrible fear in our guts, unable to really risk bringing it forward. And mentorship to me is essential. I have long wanted to write just a book on the criticality of the mentors, being a mentor to someone over a long period of time, really helping pass on the wisdom, take an interest in someone who's striving, someone who you can see a spark in, but who's not daring to fan that flame.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to read this key example. Dare to say, oh yes.
Yep.
Can you expand on the mind map?
Yes. So I'll talk about the mind map, the concept of the mind map. This mind map is an evolution of one that Michael Chekhov, who was a great actor. He was the nephew of the playwright Anton Chekhov. And Michael Chekhov himself was Oscar nominated for a Hitchcock film with Ingrid Bergman and called Spellbound and Gregory Peck. And he drew a version of this for one of my great mentors, Mala Powers, who was the beautiful Roxanne to Jose Ferrer Cyrano. She was privately coached by Michael Chekhov. Michael Chekhov, by the way, is considered one of the greatest actors that Russia ever produced. And he was a mentor to a lot of our great actors, including Marilyn Monroe and James Dean, and the people I mentioned, Peck and Bergman and Elizabeth Taylor, many people. But low profile, right? But he drew a version of this, and the idea is to achieve a state of peak performance. And when we're in a peak performance, all of our energy is unified. If you could imagine it streaming in from the muses and coming up from an anchored, grounded place and uniting toward a single field of focus. And you can actually do this gesture. I mean, a person can actually do this to help get themselves focused. And I do this part of a ritual. It's called a psychological gesture. It gets everything focused and aligned toward that single field of focus. And if you're an athlete, an artist, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're trying to concentrate, this movement will help get your entire energy field together. That's getting into that point. The idea is that these are arrows, and these are techniques or tools around it which can guide you into that center point. That center point is like the sun, and these are like little light bulbs. And when you concentrate on just one little light bulb, it turns that bulb on, which ignites it and sends a spark into the center, which lights up the center, which lights up all the other bulbs like a marquee. So your peak performances come from one point of focus. And that's a very difficult thing for people today, you know, to say no to all the other things coming in and pick just one. So when we were talking about 3 sources of conflict, inner, between, and from without. In your preparation, you want to focus on one. You want to look at just what is on the inner world. And if you find multiple there, just select one. Address one step at a time and say no to all the extra stuff. And listen, because you have a higher self. You have a self that's been inspired. And that self, when you're in that state, time stops. Space stops. There's nothing but the present. And everyone around you experiences that same suspension of time and space in that creative moment. And in that creative moment, there is no technique. You just ride that wave. There's no tools in the middle. You don't need techniques when you're there. But if you start to fall away, or if you don't know how to get there, focusing on just one thing.
Feels like this, for some of us who aren't as experienced in the theatrical expression of this, my mind kind of goes to yoga in a sense of also using, I get up and if I'm working on a project and I'm just in the weeds, stand up and just move my arms and kind of breathe and stretch and try to push that back out. And kind of when you were doing this hand motion, that just brings me back to some of, this yoga move. I'm not a super experienced yogi, so I'm not going to go off the names, but just that, for those of us who need that other kind of tangible thing to do with our bodies that will help center the mind too.
One of the most watched TED Talks is about power poses. And I take that to the power gestures.
Yes.
Power gestures aren't just a stationary move, but they're a move from a weakened state into the strong state. So if I am terrified or if I'm really lethargic, I say, yep. I don't say no. I say, yep, I'm really lethargic. What would I like to be? I would like to be energized. And but I'm really lethargic. Or I'm really scared. And I'd like to be brave. I'd like to put on my superhero self, right? I mean, imagine you've got a superhero self.
Hey, we all do.
What kind of hat, what kind of helmet that gets you clear thinking, seeing, thinking straight, right? What kind of cape to make you, what are your superpowers that engage this part of the body? And what kind of boots do you got, man?
I love that.
You got put on
Strap
some
'em
boots.
on.
Yeah, draw.
Yeah.
That's I drew. Look, here's my little super
like
being there. I got this feathered hat.
doodle. Yes.
Got to have a little flair, I got a purple cape.
I like it.
I got gold boots.
That's such a fun exercise. I feel like everyone should just take a moment and doodle your superhero costume outfit and just visualize that. Put that on the bulletin board above your desk and kind of hold on to it.
Those boots help you walk forward through the world.
They do.
And that cape will help you fly with the feeling and the environment, the atmosphere that you like. And that headset, that helmet, that hat, however you want to envision it, is going to give you that clarity of thought.
Yes, I love that. Well, we are 5 minutes from closing, but we're getting a lot of positive chat in the box. And thank you guys for giving us your comments and questions. Let's close with just kind of recapping on your an acronym?
My acronym?
For DARE, Divine Acts Resplendent Expression. Just kind of leave us with that closing thought.
Yes, it's so, the divine is that inspiration that comes in, and inspire is breath, right? Spire, breath there. So it comes in on that in-breath. Inhaling the inspiration, and exhaling the expression, bringing it out into the world, and bringing us in communion through the inner self, between and from without. If we can find the courage in those boots, right?
With that cape.
Yeah, and the love and passion in that cape, right? And that clarity of resplendent thought, right? Then we can live a life where we really do dare to do divine acts of resplendent expression.
Love that.
Live a life as an artist.
That's beautiful. Thank you so